The last person to step inside walked out under half an hour later, with a shoddy t-shirt tourniquet and a shard of porcelain the size of a $50 piece lodged under their kneecap. We tried to warn them, but they were skeptics. Had to see it for themselves. We couldn't blame them. We used to be skeptics, too. It all started as these things usually do. Small at first, little things that we could dismiss, or ignore, or laugh off as our fertile imaginations, a proclivity toward drama in our blood. A smiling family photo slapped glass side down here, a damaged charm bracelet there, a fully charged phone dying mid-selfie, or the peculiar way a summer storm throttled the shadows into the silhouette of a sickly puppet holding itself into the corner of a ceiling. A trick of the light. We laughed, and laughed, and laughed. But we can now pinpoint it as a shock of blonde curls tangled through the teeth of a comb as the first thing to genuinely give a home full of raven-haired people moment of pause. And in the casualties of our innocence, we know it began as her fractured face. She came with the house when we bought it. Move-in day, there she was, propped impossibly vertical against the crook of the bay window, pristine then, unbroken and not a day over 100 years old. Our youngest was instantly smitten. We couldn't have pried the doll from her grasp with a crowbar. It seemed innocent enough. Finders keepers, and all that. It was sweet, even. At first. Until about a month after we'd moved in, her 24/7 grip on the doll going just lax enough that the doll tumbled and landed face down on the bathroom floor, teaching us all the valuable lesson that ceramic tile, gravity, and 100-year-old porcelain don't mix well. There was no amount of superglue that could uncrack the cracks, no amount of floor sweeping. No matter how thoroughly. That could gather all the pieces, as though some of them had withered up and vanished into the thin blue, been eaten by the drain, or that the ceramic had pulverized the porcelain instantly into a dust too fine to salvage. At first. Right up until the inexplicable occurrences turned ever stranger, darker, and began to happen as frequently as every moonrise, as the doll began to move through the house seemingly of her own volition. Though her favorite spot seemed to be the bay window where we had originally found her, even if she had been in our daughter's room all night and our daughter swore up and down that she hadn't left her room the entire night, and neither had the doll. We tried to rationalize it, interrogating our daughter about creeping from her bedroom in the wee hours, lecturing her about prank pulling, grounding her for telling lies that we weren't entirely convinced she was telling anymore. It was only when we woke up with the doll sitting between us in our bed, posed in her perfectly, painfully vertical way and staring toward the mirror on our vanity as though admiring her own broken reflection. Her broken face suddenly seeming just a little more menacing, a little more sinister now, although we couldn't quite place it and we still can't. That was when we began to believe our daughter. We boxed the doll up the very next day and nestled her into the far, far corner of the attic. Out of sight, out of mind. Right? Well. At first. Right up until we started finding little stars of porcelain everywhere. Working their way into the fibers or our rugs, into our shoes and pillows and coffee mugs. We found ourselves picking tiny bits of porcelain from our teeth in the flesh or our palms and the soles of our feet like shrapnel. And yet, every time we checked, it seemed as though the doll was still holed up in the attic, still far from the bathroom where she broke, out of sight, yes. But certainly not out of mind. The last tendrils of our doubt began to flake away when our daughter came to us with bags under her eyes and fear shivering in her voice, claiming that she had begun hearing growling in her sleep. Every night. She described it as a rumbling, guttural, masculine earthquake of growls that she could only ever pluck a single clear word from in a mess of unintelligible grunting. Victim. And the night we abandoned our home, our possessions, and that demon doll for good and for all was the night our vanity mirror shattered from behind our locked bedroom door. We entered the room to find the doll standing perfectly still, perfectly vertical, a little more broken and a little creepier than ever before, right there among the glittering wreckage of our mirror. We left that same night, left what stands here now as perhaps the largest and most expensive dollhouse to ever exist. The investigators couldn't take a photo. She would never allow it. So when they came back with this sketch for us, it was all we could do not to linger on the question. When did her eyes go white?
Hi there. If you're new around here, you can call me Rose. And that's okay, because I'm new around here too. So, what you just saw there was kind of a weaving of the prompts. When I was on one of my walks for the scavenger hunt, I found this house that was totally abandoned, and it had this notice on the door. And at the time, I had also just finished this doll, this drawing of this doll. I'm going to talk about this in a little bit. I thought it would be kind of funny to weave the prompts together and explain what I thought maybe had happened with this house, while also making it about a haunted doll. And so I wrote my own little Crappypasta there. I promise I am a better writer than that, and I can bang out a better short story than that, but it was supposed to be. It was ironically, bad. I had a lot of fun with the scavenger hunt. It was just such a great time, and I don't want to take up too much time since the Crappypasta reading with my little friend there. Her name, I believe, is Sally. I'm going to show some of my pictures. I just made a few little collages. Unfortunately, the only item I could not find on my list was a cloud creature, and it's not my fault. It's not my fault. It has been nothing but blue, blue, blue in my city. It's been blue as far as the eye can see. If there were any clouds, they were not creature type, cumulus clouds, and they were just flat and popcorny, and unfortunately that was the one thing I couldn't find, but I did manage to find and interpret sometimes very funny the different little list items that I found. And it was so much fun. You can do any of these prompts at any time. This is your mixtape, and you should put it in any order that you want. I want to talk about this drawing a little bit, because as for this drawing and for a lot of the different drawings that I do for the channel, I used a reference picture. I'm going to link to the DeviantArt of the person whose drawing that I used for a reference to create this doll. This is maybe the first time in my adult life that I have ever been drawing on a regular basis or painting. I am just learning how to do these things, in a way that's kind of more real. I mean, I used to draw and paint when I was a child, but I'm a woman now, and I spent a lot of my 20s in school. I took anatomy and physiology, and I would draw, when I was learning anatomy, I would draw every part of the body and label it. But otherwise, I haven't done a lot of drawing in my adult life, and I'm just learning. And it's so awesome because the resources available to me are enabling me to learn how to draw without going to school. And I'm not tracing anything unless, of course, I'm transferring something onto a canvas so that I can paint it. But I'm not tracing. A lot of the times I'm just kind of mimicking the lines that I see, and trying to learn shading and dimensions and how to make things look more realistic rather than all cartoony and childlike. I think it's amazing because we have so much available to us now that we can learn. And I read a quote last night that I thought was pertinent to this whole everything that we're doing here, and that was that anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. I don't say, oh, I'm not a great drawer, I'm not a great painter, to put myself down. It's more to encourage people, because if I can do it, you can do it, because you just have to start. You have to start somewhere. And if you have to start like me by using reference pictures to start learning the different techniques and different ways that you can draw and paint, do it, because not all of us can afford to go to art school and pay all of that money and give up our firstborn just to get a degree in art. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's something I can't do. I can't afford to do that. So what am I doing? I'm teaching myself. I'm a beginner. I consider myself a beginner right now, and that's fine. Just start and then keep going, because as cheesy as it sounds, like they always say, the only way you're ever going to fail is if you never try. If you want to try to learn how to draw like me, just start off by using reference pictures and see where you can go. One of my goals is that by the end of the year, I want to be able to pull an image directly from my heart and directly out of my head and put it down on paper and draw it without using a reference photo. And I have a feeling that's going to be a prompt that I'm going to use sometime down the road very soon, because it's something that I want to do. It's one of my artistic goals for the year. And that's really all we can do. Set little goals for yourself. Set little, milestones. For me, that will be a milestone if I can make a drawing from my own memory and my own use of techniques that I've learned. Then I'll have reached a great milestone in my learning how to be an artist. I feel like there's always been an artist in my soul, and I've never been the most visually oriented person. I've always been more of a writer. Don't take the Crappypasta that I wrote for this episode to be indicative of my skill level when it comes to writing, because I can write a good short story. That was just kind of a goof. Everybody, try to learn something new. I'm trying to learn something new to me. The prompt for next time, the first one is to create a jack-o'-lantern. If you celebrate Halloween, a lot of us do this every year. Maybe do a fun design that you've never done before. Try something a little more ambitious rather than just a triangle and mouth cut, for eyes and a mouth. Maybe try something a little more artsy or a little more intricate, which is maybe that's what I'll do at the end of the harvest on All Hallows Eve or Samhain. They would use actually like turnips and potatoes to make faces and to scare off the ghosts. They thought that if the ghosts thought there was a face or a person within already, they would not haunt that particular house, or they could not possess anything in that particular environment. And so we have kept this tradition. Now we use pumpkins. I've learned some new tricks and techniques for doing a jack-o'-lantern, so I'm going to put those into practice this time. The other idea that I had was to create a time capsule for October of 2018. And I'm actually going to create a time capsule. I'm going to put a bunch of different stuff from this month into it, or different little trinkets from what I've been doing or what I've been thinking about this month, and I'm going to put it in the time capsule. I'm actually going to go and find a place to bury it, and I might actually record that. I don't know if time capsules are a thing that people do anymore, but why not? Why don't we give it a shot? So those are the prompts if you choose to accept them. Thank you so very much for watching. Thanks for being here. Thanks for anybody who's been supporting me. I appreciate it. And I'll be back soon. Remember, go out there and make yourself. This stuff.